show?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because I wear fishnets and I get up on stage and I say gross shit and I don't need to deal with you being pissed off about that.
Look, I flew all the way to Gotham to make things right. Please let me. I'm a grown woman. I can handle it.
Fine, then you're also gonna meet the boy I'm sleeping with.
Okay. Well, I am proud to have a gay son. Thank you for sharing that with me.
You're welcome. Thank you for receiving it so warmly. I also, you should know, don't really go by anymore. I've been having people call me Joker.
So your name's not good enough for you now?
Just meet me at the theater, God damn it, Mom.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we are talking about The People's Joker from 2022. Pause the podcast. This is a...
I always forget this segment.
There's no spoilers.
No, you can't spoil it because the whole film is riffing on canon that we are all intimately familiar with.
Yes. We'll spoil some of the Easter eggs maybe, but even then, you know what, I watched this twice in 2 days.
Oh my god, you watched it twice?
I watched it twice because I was like, look, there's a whole spiel behind it. Okay, I actually bought the Blu-ray of this.
Amazing.
And I'll tell you what, it's got a cover by this Canadian indie artist named Michael DeForge. So I was like, okay, I'll buy it. And also when it came out on DVD, I've been waiting 2 years because the movie had been suppressed.
Indeed.
And I was like, oh, I better grab this. I don't know if it's going to show up on the pirate sites or anything or how underground this is. I better buy this. And I watched it yesterday, and then I thought, I'll watch it again today with the commentary track, because there's like 3 commentary tracks.
Wow.
And there's like special features. And our Blu-ray player is not hooked up since we moved into this house, so I couldn't actually do it, because this is not a DVD, this is a Blu-ray. So this is still sealed. I haven't opened this.
Oh, so it is.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, I don't have any extra...
That is massively disappointing.
But anyway, I decided to watch it again because it's 90 minutes, but it was just like so much was coming at me. I was like, I couldn't keep track. Like, there was just too much going on for one viewing. So I thought, okay, I'll watch it again.
This is sort of almost like the ultimate fan film crossed with a media studies student magnum opus.
I saw somebody on Letterboxd described it as a zine on film, and that was like,
that's
really accurate.
That's very accurate.
Yeah.
A fanzine on film.
Yeah, it's like a real underground copyright breaking.
Yep.
Thing.
It's so cobbled together.
Yeah.
It's also a crowdsourced movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So remember in it's a lockdown project as well. Mm-hmm. That's just
it's all
in there. Everything in the kitchen sink is in there.
Robert Wool is in this movie, and it's a cameo. They paid him on Cameo.
He probably didn't even know it was going to be used.
Well, he says he's in there twice, and in the middle of the movie he shows up and he's like, I'm not sure I'm allowed to do this on Cameo. He actually says that
right
on camera. And at the end he has this really nice message for the director. But anyway.
All right. So it's directed, written by, and starring Vera Drew.
Yes.
Who is a comedian, film editor, and trans woman.
Yeah.
That's important because the film is about, among many other things, her discovery of her nature as a trans person.
Yes. Okay, so every time we do one of these Batman episodes, I just have to choose some random issues.
Yeah.
So we did
origin stories. I mean, that's appropriate because this is a film as origin story.
Was like, were these the right choice? And I think they kind of are. So we did, last time we talked about Batman, I think we did Detective 168, which is the origin of Batman, which is a Red Hood story. How he was this criminal called the Red Hood, and then he fell into some chemicals, and then we came out, he was all white-faced with green hair.
Yes,
and
we did that. That's the one where Robin cooks up chemicals on the fly to detect green.
That's right. Yes.
Green hair and...
That's right.
And stuff like that.
And Batman's teaching at a university as a favor to the dean.
That's so wacky.
This time we talked about Batman issue 1 from 1940, which was the first appearance of the Joker. This issue actually had 2 Joker stories in it. Mm-hmm. Like the Joker and then the Joker Returns.
Yes.
And Joker was actually supposed to die at the end of Joker Returns.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he accidentally stabs himself to death. And then they decided, well, he's too good, and they added 2 panels where the paramedics discovered that he's actually still breathing, and he's alive at the end of the story. But this story was written by Bill Finger, of course, as all these stories were, drawn partially by Bob Kane and partially by Jerry Robinson. So Bill Finger especially was the main guy that created all these Batman characters back in the day. And this first story is only 13 pages, but it's pretty great, I think, for what it is. It is wild. Joker, he's just this psycho that shows up and starts announcing that he's going to kill people over the radio. He hijacks the radio waves.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm going to kill...
It's a bit like Arsène Lupin, but he kills you as well as steals your valuables.
Yeah, so he's like, okay, I'm going to steal your diamond and then I'm going to kill you. And there's a really weird, confusing bit here where he announces he's going to kill somebody called Henry Claridge, and this woman who's listening to the radio with her husband says, Henry, did you hear? But this is a different Henry. Why name both characters Henry? Bizarre. Anyway.
It's awesome. Oh, man.
So, this guy's all worried. The cops show up to protect him, and then suddenly he, dies with this at 12 o'clock exactly, as announced. And he dies at 12 with this rictus grin on his face.
Yep.
And it's pretty, gruesome for a 1940...
I can see this absolutely blowing some kids' socks off.
Oh, yeah. And then, there's, wild chase scenes and stuff. Joker jumps out a window, Batman jumps out, and he's, hanging onto the car.
Joker himself is really freaky.
Yeah.
He's completely recognizable. He has his pale white face.
Yeah.
He's wearing purple. And
seems to be based on Conrad Veidt from The Man Who Laughs, according to most people.
When did that come out?
That was 28.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, that's right, 1928.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I've actually heard that before, that he was based on that. I believe it.
Yeah.
Because of that rictus grin that his victims get.
Yes.
Although he himself isn't always grinning. I think in his introductory panel, he's not.
That's right.
Instead, the captions point out... The captions are very breathy and purple.
Yeah.
They're always using a lot of hyperbole. They point out that his eyes burn with hate. That's the first thing that they make reference to.
Oh, yeah. A droning, deadly voice, a funereal face with eyes radiating hate. Was one of the captions, which I quite liked.
Yeah. Some of these captions are bloody awful, but some of them are quite good.
Yeah, that's right. Some of them are just, they're just there. But as a story, I mean, it's so violent, and then these other gangsters are like, this guy's stealing the diamonds we were planning to steal.
Yep.
So he starts going after the gangsters. And as I mentioned, there's this chase, which would have been very difficult to film. This is a kind of thing that works really well in a comic. But in 1940, special effects probably couldn't have quite pulled it off. He's able to disguise himself as a detective at one stage that's supposed to be protecting this judge or something like that.
He's really good, right? He's a master.
Yeah.
He's a master of chemicals, of poisons. He can disguise himself. He can hack into the... Hack is not quite the right verb. He can broadcast over the radio. He can interrupt regular programming.
Yeah, he can hijack the airwaves.
Hijack is the word I wanted. Yeah, so he's just omnidisciplinary and very competent.
Yeah.
Frightening.
Yeah.
The guy that died at precisely midnight, it turned out he'd been poisoned 24 hours earlier with a 24-hour toxin.
Yes, that's right.
And the gem had been stolen at that point too and replaced with a glass one.
That's right.
And it was only
he already committed the crime before he
even announced it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's some crazy shenanigans.
Yes.
Then he hides in a suit of armor.
That's right, for the next one.
The next guy's one.
Yeah.
So because he knows that he won't be able to pull the same trick twice, he can't steal the thing that he wants to steal in advance again. So he hides in a suit of armor instead and kills the guy with a blow dart.
Yes.
Again with Joker toxin on it.
Yeah.
And they don't call it Joker toxin at that point.
Not yet.
Because, this is all to come.
Yes. And so finally, Batman and Robin lay a trap for him.
Yeah.
And beat him up and capture him, and that's kind of the...
He is pretty quickly and easily outsmarted.
Yeah, it's only a 13-page story.
Yeah.
But then there's another story in the same issue. The interesting thing about that one was, to me, that at one stage Joker gets away and Batman's still there at the scene and the cops try to arrest him. So at this point, Batman's still a vigilante that's the cops are trying to get. They open fire on him.
Yeah. Early days.
And also but Robin's here in these stories already. This is only 1 year, Batman debuted in 39. This is 1940. He's already got a Robin, and I'm like, oh, he's making this child commit crimes. Like this child is now like an accessory.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
It's not just he hasn't just adopted this kid and is, doing acrobatics with him and fighting crime. It's not wholesome. It's like, you're doing these crimes with me, kid.
I'm pleased you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is and this Batman issue 1. This is the introduction of the Joker. So this is the first named superhero comic, I think.
What do you mean?
So.
Oh, I see. So the
comic. So it's actually called Batman. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think Superman's still slumming it in Action Comics.
Action Comics. Oh, okay. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, and so also Batman's very quippy.
That's something I wanted to bring up.
So like when he jumps onto Joker's getaway car, he's like, "Didn't you know it's a leap year?" or something like that.
I wrote this down.
Okay.
I wrote this down.
Okay.
Because it's not. It says, "Hasn't this boy heard it's leap year?"
Yes. Yes.
Which I had to read twice.
Yeah.
To figure out what the hell he was talking about. He's talking
about the fact that he leaped onto the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is very like 1960s.
Yeah.
Kind of Adam West
Those
Batman.
scenes are there.
Another point, he punches the Joker at another point and says, "You may be the Joker, but I'm the king of clubs."
Yes, there are a few card deck, kind of playing card puns that happen in these stories.
Yeah. And also, as I mentioned, the captions will often call him the Magnificent Batman or the Mighty Batman.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
The Man Mountain Batman, all of these very kind of like overblown descriptions that I'm not accustomed to.
What was your take on the Joker's sanity? Which is, in later years, is like the key thing is this guy is insane. I don't think they ever played it as him being insane in these first two appearances.
No. No, he's not mentally ill. What is mental illness? Oh, well, madness.
Yeah.
Right, in 1940s,
Cartoon madness.
No, he's just,
He's diabolical.
Yes. And he's very angry.
Yes.
He's very wicked, and we're told that he's in a rage or a state of hatred a lot of the time.
Yes, that's right.
But he's certainly not... His madness isn't there yet. That thing that we most associate.
No, I don't even know if he really
crazy.
Cackles or...
No, he doesn't. And he's not erratic either.
Right.
The way that we think of the Joker now as being sort of prone to explosive rages and going off on tangents and...
Yeah.
And essentially only cobbling together coherent plans out of a crazy kind of attention deficit state.
Yes.
Nothing like that here.
Yeah.
He's just a kind of sinister mastermind.
Yes.
And very gadget heavy.
Yes, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah. Like
lots of gadgets.
Yeah. Like the blow gun you mentioned and the gas.
Yeah.
Or the poison that's making people smile.
Yeah.
I think the thing with the gangsters reminded me actually of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight movie with that kind of...
Wouldn't surprise me if Nolan... I mean, Nolan must have read this comic.
Yeah, actually.
Well, you don't... I imagine he would have.
Yeah.
I imagine he would have.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, such is the omnipresence of these characters and our awareness of their origins that it's perfectly plausible that he might never have.
Does Joker ever laugh in that movie?
I don't remember.
I don't remember him laughing the way Cesar Romero or Jack Nicholson did at all.
Jack Nicholson was always laughing, yeah. No, I don't think... Isn't that... Oh, citation needed, because that would be extraordinary, because he laughs all the time, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The Joker. He's the man who laughs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, someone write in and let us know. Right?
We will answer that question ourselves one day, anyway. Okay, so the other story we read this week in our random choice was Mad Love from 1993. Now, this was a Batman the Animated Series...
Spin-off?
Yeah, it was an issue. There was a comic book tie-in to the animated series.
Right.
And they had... This character, Harley Quinn, was created for the show as a sidekick of the Joker. But we didn't get her origin until the comics.
Yep.
Her origin came out in this specific... Very long. It was like a 60-page comic or something like that. By Paul Dini, who was the writer on the cartoon, and drawn by Bruce Timm.
Yeah.
who's a guy, I think he's the guy that was, every time he saw an article about how to draw comics and he did it, he would be like, anybody can learn to draw comics. You just have to practice or whatever.
Oh, sure, mate. The art in this it looks exactly like the animated,
Yeah.
it looks exactly like the TV show.
Yeah.
The classic Batman the Animated Series, which we did Mask of the Phantasm,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we're familiar with it.
Yeah.
This comic's great.
It is really great. And it's, so it's 93, as I said, so it's 30 years ago now.
God, yeah.
But,
Looks like
basically-
it could have been published yesterday. The art's so crisp and nice.
yeah. So, this is a special edition. It was probably from a few years later, but,
Oh, so they might have cleaned it up.
maybe, I'm not sure. But Commissioner Gordon shows up for a dentist appointment. And when he shows up, his dentist has actually been replaced by the Joker, and this is all a trap laid by the Joker. And the Joker's about to kill him with a dentist drill.
Yes.
But then Batman swings through, and he figured out that he was at the dentist because of chattering teeth that had been left at the police station. But it turns out the teeth had been left by Harley Quinn,
Yeah.
not by the Joker. This makes the Joker very angry because he's the one that does the jokes, and she screwed up and basically lured Batman there and ruined his big plan.
The clue was too obvious.
Yeah. So now we learn a bit about Harley's origin through Batman going through his computer file, because now he's having trouble with Joker got away after this incident at the dentist.
Yeah.
And he's become slippery, especially now because he has this assistant who's Harley Quinn. So we learned that Harley she'd gotten into university on a gymnastics scholarship, and she wanted to become a psychiatrist, a pop psychiatrist, like one that wrote books and appeared on
She wants to be
talk
like
shows.
Dr. Phil.
That's right. And she was failing her classes, but we see some very subtle panels where she walks into the
Is it
boss
subtle?
office, and then the next panel she walks out. She walks in with a D on her assignment, D-, walks out, the prof's clothes are disheveled, and he's got heart marks over his head.
And lipstick marks on his
And lipstick
face.
mark, and she's walking out with an A+ on the front of her paper. Well, it's pretty good for, stuff that kids would not
1993
get,
for
but the
kids.
grown-ups would get, I think, maybe. I think
Yeah.
the little kids would be
And
like, I don't
Batman's
know what
saying,
happened.
Harley and Quinzel, because that's her name,
Yeah.
was bad from the start or something. Because she blew her professor for an A. Fuck Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's crimes and there's crimes, mate.
Yeah. So he's trying to, meanwhile in the present, Joker is trying to figure out this elaborate trap. This is really cool, actually, because in the 70s, like the Denny O'Neil era, which we talked about Fiber Revenge, Batman would just show up and Joker would have this elaborate trap.
Yeah.
Here's this Shark Tank.
Yeah.
I'm crazy, I'm going to drop you into this thing.
Yeah.
Here, he's actually drawing out, he's sketching out ideas for elaborate traps. He's like, I'm trying to come up with an elaborate trap.
So funny, Harley's wearing a red teddy,
Yeah.
and she's trying to seduce him.
Yeah.
Yeah, she says, you want to rev up your Harley? She sort of does a vroom vroom kind of
Yes,
thing.
yes.
And yeah, but he's too busy. He's too busy for love.
Yeah.
He's concentrating on how to get back at Batman for spoiling his fun with his dentist,
Yeah.
Jake.
Now, the important thing here is he's constantly shoving her. He throws her into a cell. This is a codependent relationship, abusive.
It's abusive. Codependent, I wouldn't say codependent, because the Joker doesn't seem to really...
Oh.
He's just using her,
Well,
right?
do you think what about if he's a taker, she's a giver, kind of
that
she's
what
constantly
codependent-
trying to, I don't know, she's constantly trying to satisfy him. He's he takes.
I think it's a straightforward... I'm not sure the precise definition. It seems like a straightforward abusive relationship.
Yes, right.
That
right.
It's very much... And it's not... It doesn't seem like it's being played that way.
Yes.
We're kind of being beaten over the head with it.
Yes, again in a way that the grown-ups in the room would get,
Oh, yeah.
and the kids probably wouldn't really be getting this dimension of it, I don't think.
This comic is an exploration of an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Really. And I think we have that bit at the start where Batman says that before she okay. Because she's villainous, we kind of have to establish that her villainy is at least partly her own fault.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why we see her cheating on her tests.
Yeah.
We see her, she wants to become a kind of figure that even in the early 1990s we associated it as being disreputable, and that is a pop psychologist like Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz or someone like that. Mm-hmm. And she takes shortcuts, and it comes back to bite her because she sees the ultimate shortcut, the patient that's going to make her name, going to make her famous, is the Joker. First of all, she gets into Arkham where she shouldn't be as a grad student, because it's full of the worst of the worst. Criminally insane people. And then she goes even further and decides that the Joker's the one she's going to treat him, and that's what's going to make her famous. And of course, the Joker's 10 times cleverer than she is.
Yes.
He promptly ensnares her in a web of lies. And from the beginning, despite the Joker being utterly mad to a comic book degree, the way he takes advantage of her is very, very mundane. He just lies about his past.
His dad abused him or whatever. He tells these stories, and she feels sorry for him. But he tells her that her name sounds like a Harlequin. So he suggests that she should dress up like that. But then there's this great sequence where she describes her relationship as if so she's in this cell and she's talking out loud, telling us, the reader almost, how she met the Joker and all this stuff. Then we get this page where she says, well, then I fell for him and he was like a lost injured child. But then we cut away and we see this is actually her on the couch, and he's a psychiatrist, and he's listening to her explain why she loves him.
It's such a great transition.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's ended up on the couch and he's sitting in the chair with the clipboard and the pen. It's just really clever.
One day, Batman comes in with a beat up Joker. He's beat the crap out of him. Joker is now...
He's escaped from Arkham and Batman's recaptured him, brought him back.
Yeah, and they're both really beat up. And Harleen is outraged at this. It's a silent page where you see the outrage on her face and you see the shock on Batman's face that she's outraged about it.
Yeah.
And Joker's like all bandaged up. He's got like broken bones and stuff. And she decides enough is enough. She goes out and buys her a Harlequin costume. And she comes back to Arkham.
I think she steals the Harlequin costume.
Right. Yes, that's right. Probably. Yeah.
Not a big important... But again...
yeah, that's right. Somebody's yelling at her.
Just so we don't forget that she's a villain.
Yeah. So
they can't go...
Yeah.
Because this is a kid's comic book. I mean, ultimately, I suppose, she can't be too much of a victim. She has to be a little bit villainous, I think. Yeah.
So she breaks him out, and she has all these fantasies about them having like kids together and stuff, and it's all really funny and weird.
Yeah, but it's also really sad.
Oh yeah, that too. So back in the present,
it's depressing, man.
Yeah. Back in the present, Joker had been working on this piranha tank trap.
Yeah.
But then he realized that the piranhas have a perpetual frown, so it doesn't work. And she figures out, if I hang Batman upside down, it will look to him like the piranhas are smiling.
It means that their mouths are downturned, is what you mean by frowning.
Right. Yes, that's right. So she sends a videotape to Batman. She says, look, Joker's going too far. I need you to come meet me. I'll tell you what he's going to do. I'll tell his plans, all this stuff. He goes to meet her, but actually it's a trap she set up because she wants to impress the Joker.
Well, she's decided that the reason why she and the Joker can't be happy together is because of Batman. Because Batman, he's distracted because of Batman. He needs to outsmart Batman. He needs to capture Batman. And the Joker had been laying that groundwork since their very first encounter, in which, when he talks about his abusive father, he compares his abusive father to Batman.
Batman's always a problem. Yes, that comes up again and again.
It's pretty good for a comic for kids from 1993.
Yeah, absolutely. So she captures Batman. She hangs him over the tank, and then he's like, Joker lied to you. Like, did he tell you the story about the dad? That's like all a lie. Like, he's told it different times. So he says, I think Batman's the one that says, call Joker.
Yeah, he realizes that he needs to escape. And so what he says is that there's only one problem. You've got me banged to rights, he says. I'm strung up over this piranha tank. You've got my belt. You know, I'm upside down and dizzy. But when I die...
he's not going to believe you.
He'll never believe you did it.
Yeah.
Because there's not going to be anything left.
Yeah.
Just a few scraps of cloth, maybe. He really has to be here. And she is persuaded by that, except this is a mistake because the Joker is a psychotic abuser.
Yeah.
He will never be happy with someone else.
That's right.
Outshining
he wants to be
him.
the one to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. His victim can't upstage him So, of course, he shows up furious. We get a great, Psycho, we get a Hitchcock revolving talking heads as he's driving there.
Yes.
You know, like Psycho.
Yeah.
And it's all of the other members of Batman's Rogues Gallery laughing at him because his girlfriend is the one that took it out back. Right? Oh, look, it's Mr. Harley Quinn.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's brilliant. Anyway, he shows up. He's furious. He kicks the door in and is, Harley!
Yeah.
And did Mark Hamill's Joker.
Yeah.
And she's thrilled to see him, of course, and he just hits her straight away. Starts beating her.
Yes, and in fact throws her out a window.
Yeah.
And she crashes. We don't know what happens to her at that point.
Well, we just sort of see her arm in a puddle of blood.
So he pulls Batman down, like he's going to set him free, but then he has he changes his mind. He says,
It's hilarious.
again.
He pulls him down and he says, well, I'm just going to let you know this was a mistake. You know, I'm sorry this happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to leave you here and we'll just pretend it didn't happen, okay? And then he starts to walk away. On the other hand, and then he makes ready to kill
Then he
him.
pulls a gun, he's about to shoot him, but Batman kind of kicks the gun, so he shoots the piranha tank. The piranhas, are out. Batman escapes from his binds, and he's chasing the Joker. Joker manages to jump off onto a train.
Thinks he's escaped, he's laughing, ha ha ha. But Batman's already there, the way Batman always is.
Yeah.
He's behind him the whole time.
Yeah.
And Batman then taunts the Joker, says, Harley just came closer to killing me than you ever have. I mean, it was all there. I was absolutely at her mercy.
Yeah.
I just knew, though, that the only way I was going to survive is if I got her to call you, because I knew you would never, ever let her do it.
Yeah.
And Joker's furious.
Yeah, so he managed to throw Joker into like a chimney, a giant chimney.
Not again, he says.
Yeah, and Harleen goes into a cell at Arkham, and she's like, "Never again. I'm done with that guy." But then she sees there's a flower in her room, and it says, "Feel better soon, Jay."
And he left her a flower right back at the start.
Yes.
That was one of the ways he got her interested in...
Yeah, and she lights up again like an abused spouse.
Exactly. I just love everything about this comic.
Yeah, it's really pretty great.
It's so good.
Yeah.
The Paul Dini in the afterword or the foreword says, "I don't think of Mad Love as a victim's tale, but a cautionary one about what happens when one loves recklessly, obsessively, and too long. Through Harley's tragicomic experiences, we catch a glimpse of ourselves in a funhouse mirror, distorted and all too willing to play the fool for someone we'd be much better off without."
Yep. Now, the point here is that Harley became a hugely popular character.
She has her own series, I believe.
Her own series with Poison Ivy, where she's in a relationship with Poison Ivy. She leaves Joker and ends up with Ivy in the show. I've seen it. It's kind of R-rated, like there's cursing in it and stuff.
Okay.
I saw one episode at some stage somewhere, I think. Yeah, hugely popular character in all sorts of iterations, even had...
Well, I mean,
her own movie, which I keep forgetting exists. It's like Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn do the blah, 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 blah.
Emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
Has anybody seen this movie?
I think so.
Does anybody remember it? Every time I hear about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that came out 2 years ago and probably cost $60-70 million or something and vanished. But the character just keeps...
It's Margot Robbie. She's
Yes.
a very kind of influential iteration of the character, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
She's been in about 3 or 4 movies or something. At least 3, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's the 2 Suicide Squads and that solo movie.
The Birds of Prey movie.
The Birds of Prey movie, yeah.
Are they an expanded universe? Probably,
Yes, because that Joker is supposed to be the Joker from the Ben Affleck Batman and that Zack Snyder. That's all supposed to be tied together. I'm not sure about the second Suicide Squad. I don't know what that is. That's a whole other...
This podcast is beginning to labour under the weight of its own.
It's interesting because all this stuff it all kind of mixes up in this movie as well that we're about to talk about. It
sure does.
It's all kind of in there as if it all is valid. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's all continuity in some sense.
So we've had two points that I want to return to.
Okay.
Harley Quinn in an abusive relationship with the Joker.
Yes.
Robin in an abusive relationship with Batman.
Yes. Okay. Well, we can cover those. We can move straight into this.
Those are the 2 things from Batman 1 and Mad Love that I
Yeah. Okay.
that
Okay.
perhaps
yeah.
we could talk about
Absolutely.
when it comes to the People's Joker.
Well, the Batman Robin thing was Frederick Wortham was like in the 50s was like these are homosexual characters that are being
Yeah.
your children are reading this and they're being poisoned. Their minds are being poisoned by these homosexual
Yeah.
characters.
Seduction of the Innocent.
Yeah. So there's like, this is, Batman's not, I mean, we had Kevin Conroy, Joel Schumacher, like there are large queer figures that loom large in Batman's history.
Oh, yeah.
Like those people, and even the fake history that Wortham put onto it. But that was even parodied in like the ambiguously gay duo, if you ever saw those
Yes, I
cartoons
did.
on SNL.
It's an SNL sketch.
Yeah. So people always joke about that kind of thing with Batman and Robin. So it's there. It's like in some kind of in the shadows or right up front. So this movie initially came out in 2022. As you said, it was crowdsourced.
It seems to have begun as I said, like a lockdown project.
Okay, so there's the credits are run very fast, but there's a credit at the end I paused. There's a screen where her co-writer, whose name I didn't write down, I think it was Bree something.
That sounds right, yeah.
Sent a text to her and Venmoed her $12 and said, this is like the commissioning fee for Vera Drew's re-edit of Todd Phillips' Joker. Right? So it was like, I want you to remake this. I'm paying you $12 to write a screenplay. So they wrote this screenplay together. And that's how it kind of emerged. So it was...
Yeah, that is how it kicked off. I read a few interviews with Vera Drew and a couple of articles about the film when it was when it blew up after Warner Brothers sent the cease and desist. So as you said, that Venmoed request to cut. So originally it was like a challenge.
Right.
I want you to re-edit Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie to a new script, or just like a fan edit.
Yeah.
Then that turned into an idea that they would remake Joker or make a new story with a new script where they would make it by sampling. So this is very student art project.
Yeah.
But fun. This is some people made sourdough in lockdown. This other people made movies.
Yeah.
I think of that Princess Bride movie that was on YouTube where all of the various Hollywood actors did all the scenes from Princess Bride. It seems like what she was going to do was she was going to take clips from Joker, but also from all the other Batman films that had ever been made at that point.
Okay.
As well as footage from Man on the Moon, the Andy Kaufman...
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because when we get into this, because whenever they use this term anti-comedy in this movie...
Yes, and they even mention Andy Kaufman by name.
They do, but they don't use it in the Andy Kaufman sense of unfunny or deliberately unfunny. They use it as... It's hard... We'll get into the movie itself.
It's self-aware.
Yeah.
The other film... And so... Presumably, this script is starting to look like the script we eventually get.
Okay.
They were going to make a film mashed together out of lots of different scenes from different genre films, including every single Batman movie, quote unquote, Man on the Moon, Network, and Return to Oz.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was going to become Vera Drew's coming out story, essentially. She was going to use all this footage. But eventually she decided that she wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And what she would do instead was that she reached out to kind of across the internet to a lot of different creative types, a lot of different creators, editors, video editors, computer imagery specialists, something almost 200 people, many of whom are queer or trans, part of her, I suppose, her personal network of people that she knows in the industry who have a queer orientation, and they all collaborated on it together. And this film is the outcome, and of course, and it is very eclectic. Yeah. As a consequence of that, so we have traditionally animated sequences, we have computer animated sequences, we have a lot of green screen stuff. Yeah.
There's a puppet. I watched the movie twice, and I forgot to write down the fact that Mixius Pitlick is in this movie as a puppet 2 times. Yeah. I watched it 2 times. There's so much stuff going on. I was like, I failed to write down this very significant sort of detail. I don't know, is it significant? But anyway.
There's even something that was done using a PlayStation 1 era video editor
Yes.
The Bat Cave is done all in that, and they have a chase sequence that's done all. So it's essentially, you know, like
Yeah.
Resident Evil 1 quality graphics.
Yeah, and there's different animation styles. Like they do a kind of animated series style for one particular sequence in the climax.
Yes, it's a Batman. Yeah, like Batman the animated
It's the
series.
stuff that they couldn't do as actors. You can't have them jumping around having fisticuffs kind of stuff.
Correct.
And there's also like maybe the closest it gets to a graphic sex scene is done as animation because it's just obvious like that's going to be an animated scene. You know, they can go that way. But there's so much other stuff going on as well.
Yeah, I've got a quote. I found an interview with Vera Drew from early 2023 when the film was still very much
in
limbo.
Yeah.
The interviewer. This was on a website called them.us, which is a queer news website, and the article is called "Vera Drew on her sublimely bizarre and surprisingly heartfelt Joker parody." They asked her, "On the note of traditional filmmaking, you've mentioned that there was something like 200 collaborators involved. What was the process of working with so many different artists like?" She said, "I had a website up where people could submit, and I opened it up to anybody in the visual arts or filmmaking or TV or animated space that just wanted to do this. I was expecting maybe 20 people to reply, but I woke up to my inbox full of hundreds of people who wanted to do it, and it was a lot of people who were coming at it from the same place as me. These were characters that they had always turned to understand themselves as queer people. It was at this moment that I was like, oh my god, I'm not the only person this movie is for."
Right.
She said, "One of our contributors, someone called Salem Hughes, submitted a lo-fi PlayStation 1 style video art." When I saw that, I was like, we can do a bat chase. It feels like a weird PlayStation game or something. Finally, one of our animators led a team of 10 people to make the whole Batman the Animated Series style fight scene that comes at the end of the movie.
Okay. So this movie opens, as I mentioned, it's 90 minutes, but we get a disclaimer about the legality of it. So it did have a premiere at Toronto International Film Festival 2022.
Yes.
And then there was kind of a holy shit, what is this? And then it got suppressed very quickly.
I've read varying accounts of this. It seems, one account I read is that the film was to show on opening night at the Toronto International Independent Film Festival, or whatever it's called. And they maybe received a cease and desist from Warner Brothers the day before.
Oh, I see.
They screened it anyway.
Okay.
On opening night. But then the festival organisers yanked it.
I hope that's true, because it's very much in the spirit of this movie if they showed it anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, in the spirit of the movie and even the plot of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then we get the studio title cards. The first one comes up as a pumpkin with the letters VD on it, and then Haunted Gay Ride Pictures. And I was like, boy, what am I in for here? VD, Haunted Gay Ride Pictures. Okay. And then we get the dedication screen, which is for Mom and Joel Schumacher.
I wrote that
which is even funnier on the second viewing, because you're like, what is going on here? Okay. And then we get the opening line, or one of the very opening lines is, we get a bit of a montage. We get this character who's like the Joker. It's that Joaquin Phoenix, you've seen him with his elbow resting, and he's in the red suit, and he's backstage at the show.
And smoking,
It's that same, but it's his character. It's his Vera Drew Joker character. And we're getting these snippets from TV of all these people keep using the substance called Smilex, which, as you know, was the gas from the Tim Burton Batman movie. But
was that the origin of Smilex?
I don't know. It's possible.
But certainly in Batman 1, they're not calling it Smilex at that point. It's just...
No, that's right. It's just some toxin.
I think it's often called Joker toxin in the comics. So maybe Smilex was the
I'm not sure.
Tim Burton film.
Okay, so then we get a bit of a flashback, but before that, to the point of how is this person backstage, she gives us a line which is, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a Joker. Mm-hmm. Which is the Henry Hill line from Goodfellas. Yeah. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Yeah.
So now we've got Goodfellas thrown in here too. Mm-hmm. Which is... that Joker movie is a ripoff of Taxi Driver and King of Comedy.
Yes.
So we've got the Scorsese riffs.
Yes.
We've added one on top of those two. In addition to being divorced from that movie, because it's not that movie, it's a parody of that movie. And then we see this kid.
So, yeah. Vera Drew's wearing her credentials on her sleeve here.
Yeah.
She's a person that works in media.
Yeah.
She's an Emmy Award-nominated video editor for work on Who is America?
Oh, right, the Sacha Baron Cohen show.
The Sacha Baron Cohen show from 2019. So she knows this stuff, and she wants us to know that...
Right.
I mean, we know it too. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody knows that Joker is like Taxi Driver.
Yeah. Yeah, and King of Comedy,
Yes, and King of Comedy.
Yeah.
Although I haven't seen King of Comedy, I have seen Taxi Driver. Though.
So, we get to young Vera growing up in Smallville. Now, I have to say, it's very hard. Before we started recording, I was like, how am I going to parse this movie? Because you feel like talking about everything as if it's Vera Drew, but in a sense, not in a sense, really this movie is about this character called Vera Drew, who becomes a character called Joker the Harlequin. And it's like, it says it's autobiographical all over the place, but... this is... I identified this as a problem. I think, a problem with the film as well. I don't know, it's not a problem. It is what...
Well, it makes it hard to talk about it.
It makes it hard to talk about, yes.
Because...
It makes it hard for two cishet middle-aged men to sit in a room and say, okay, this is what's happening and this is what's happening. Yeah. I'm always... Everything I was trying to find the real-world analog of it, but you don't have to do that to watch the movie. You can just sit and watch the movie and absorb it that way.
I mean, right out the gate, it looks like it's allegorical storytelling.
Yes. Exactly, yes.
But at the same time, we have this self-aware voiceover that's occurring. So we get almost from the very first scene... from the very first scene, we have Vera Drew, as Vera Drew, I'm pretty certain, talking about what's happening in the film in a self-aware fashion. Yes. So you can't label what's going on it's not 100% allegorical. Yeah. We're not looking at all these things trying to say, Smilex is clearly antidepressant.
Yes. Right? Because... And Smallville, I'm trying to think, this is some Midwest town, you know.
Is Smallville... what is Smallville? Has she chosen Smallville just because Smallville is the name where Superman comes from and it's like a small American town? Or is Smallville supposed to represent something more?
Yeah.
Is there something about Superman's upbringing which I should be questioning vis-a-vis, like the middle American experience? Mm. You kind of just have to take a step back from that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
This film is a fun metatextual riff.
Yes, exactly.
The whole way through. Yeah. And the point is, you're not meant to... I can imagine it being very fruitful for analysis.
Absolutely.
But that's not how... I don't think that's the approach you need to have come in.
No, you don't need to. You can watch this movie and have a fun time at this crazy movie.
Yeah.
Or, if you might be somebody that actually gets something important out of it. Absolutely, or you might be somebody that can analyze it in a deeper sense and get a literary satisfaction out of it.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
I think if you're like a film major or something, this is going to be a completely different experience, let alone if you're a person if you're a queer person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is a queer film.
Yeah.
You're going to get something completely different out of it if this speaks to your lived experience.
Yeah.
You're going to get something completely different out of it if you're into editing and film and you're going to get something completely different out of it if you're just two cishet blokes who like to talk about comic book movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so young Vera is growing up in this town called Smallville. By the way, the initial scenes we learned were in Gotham. They're taking place in Gotham City. But anyway, so she's obsessed with this TV sketch comedy show called UCB.
Yeah.
Now, this is confusing. I think it stands for United
Clown Broadcasting or something
Broadcasting
like
Clown, or I can't... Oh, United Clown Bureau.
Okay.
Now, but immediately when I saw UBC, I was like, oh, this is Upright Citizens Brigade, which is a Chicago comedy troupe, which Amy Poehler was like a founding member of that.
Yes.
And it became kind of a farm team for SNL.
Yes.
But the show looks like SNL.
Yes.
I mean, UCB never had a show. I guess Comedy Bang Bang might be the closest that came near that. But
Vera Drew worked on Comedy Bang Bang.
Right. Well, Scott Aukerman is in this, right? He's got one line as Mr. Freeze in this movie. Bob Odenkirk is in this movie. Second appearance since Monkey Bone. He's got one line as Bob the Joker's goon.
I know, that's so... Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, my God, I forgot that he was in Monkey Bone. Holy shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So immediately I'm like, okay, UCB, is this supposed to be Upright Citizens Brigade? No, it's SNL. It's kind of a joke version of SNL.
I think it's just a gag.
Yeah, it is gag.
Yeah.
But, okay, well,
Or is it?
It seems like a bit like, did Vera end up going into comedy through UCB and then get to SNL? Like, I didn't know why it was quite... But anyway, all the cast of this, let's call it SNL. No, let's call it UCB, because that's what it's called. All the cast look like jokers. They wear clown makeup, right? Because they tell jokes. They're jokers, like literally they're jokers.
Yes.
All the women on the show are like
Harlequins.
background dancers. They're Harlequins, like the background dancers on In Living Color, right? Where like J-Lo was a dancer on that show.
Yep. And if you appear on this show, you have a role depending on
Yes.
your gender.
Your gender, that's right.
If you're a man, you get to be a joker and tell jokes. If you're a harlequin, if you're a woman, you become a harlequin and you're just in the background.
Right. Now, we've also learned at some stage, I think by this point, that Bruce Wayne has retired as Batman. He's no longer Batman.
Mm-hmm. Everybody knows Bruce Wayne is Batman
That's right.
too.
And he's retired, and he has put a ban on all comedy except UCB. UCB is the only authorized outlet for comedy. If you want to do any comedy, it has to be on UCB. Nobody else is allowed to have a comedy show.
So here, and Lex Luthor as well as president. There seems to be... Batman, I think, is
Lex
running...
Luthor, the president who dies of diarrhea and a Russian piss something. It was... I can't remember what all the details were. It was a throwaway line in there.
We get it. So, I mean, Lex Luthor and Batman are on the same side. Batman, I think, is running for mayor. I don't think he's mayor yet.
Oh, okay. I didn't even catch that on 2 viewings. Right.
But he's a bit like... But he is running a kind of surveillance state.
Yes, he's retired, but he's put out these drones.
Yes.
They fly around and they broadcast his channel.
Yeah, they
also
they're a bit
monitor
like the
everyone
TV
and shoot them if they commit a crime.
They're a bit like the screens in 1984.
Yeah.
Because they both disseminate propaganda and they observe people. They're also a bit like, the Superior Spider-Man run of Spider-Man where Dr. Octopus is in Spider-Man's body.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He has all those drones as well.
Okay.
All over the city.
Okay. They reminded me a bit of They Live, where there's those things flying around that people can't see in that.
Yep. I believe all of this is part of it because this is a very self-aware, very media-aware film.
Yeah. So, young Vera's dream is to become a comedian on UCB.
Yep.
Every time, so there's Mom. Mom is I don't know quite to describe her. She's a put upon middle-aged lady. Dad is supposedly around but never shows up. She's every time Vera's like, "Where's Dad?" "Oh, he'll be back in a couple hours," or "He's still at work," or something like that. He's supposedly in the picture.
So he's gone out to get cigarettes. Much like last week. Yeah, I would say. Absent father.
So every time, but Mom doesn't really understand what's going on with her daughter. Still assumes it's a son. And is of that kind of generation or mindset where she just can't accept. There's a point where Vera Drew says, I feel like I was born in the wrong body. Yeah. And Mom just flips out at this. Like,
she doesn't.
What are you talking about?
Take that question at face value. Instead, she takes it as evidence that her son is sick, and she immediately drags him to Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
Where they meet Dr. Jonathan Crane.
Yes.
And this is a very raw kind of scene. Because
it's a conversion therapy kind of thing.
Conversion therapy, that's right. And, like the kid will say, I'm sorry I said that, but, I asked Mum if maybe I was born in the wrong body. And they both, the mother and the specialist, the expert, both just gang up on him. Yeah. No, you're sick. That was a sick thing to say. You're sick. You need to be fixed. You need to be cured.
Yeah.
Feels very, very...
And then Vera talks about how she cries at night or whatever, and then Crane's like, don't you know how much it upsets your mother that you're crying at night?
What kind of... Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing.
And it feels very personal.
Yeah.
As I said, I read interviews with Vera Drew where she just said this is, autobiographical, essentially.
Right.
She was dragged around to various experts and heavily medicated through a lot of her childhood.
So, by the way, I got the bell out this week because I wanted to mention that Arkham Asylum was named after Arkham, Massachusetts, H.P. Lovecraft's.
Oh, of course it was!
That's the first bell for today.
I'm excited to find out what the next one is.
So, oh, by the way, an interesting thing that happens here is anytime Vera's dead name is used as bleeped.
Yes.
All of these sequences.
Yeah.
Okay, so at one stage, they...
Well, Dr. Crane prescribes her
Smilex. He's developed it. This is a new development. By the way, this is a violation of... Dr. Crane makes the fear gas.
Yeah.
Smilex is a Joker's thing.
Here we're blurring...
This is a... Yes.
Yeah. We're messing with
continuity here. This is not canon. This is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And,
anyway.
Yeah. As mentioned, I mean, you could see Smilex as an analogy for an antidepressant.
Yeah.
But it's also really weird and sinister. It makes you...
And sometimes they use it and you get like a CG grin, like this huge grin. Sometimes the actor just has a huge grin. I guess just depended on whether they could get somebody to work on the scene or not. I don't know.
Did they get one of their crowdsourced experts
Yes.
to CG?
Can you just CG this super weird grin on, or are we just gonna have the actor smile?
Well, it makes you grin like smoker toxin,
Yes.
like Joker toxin, much like Smilex in the film.
Exactly. So finally, or not finally, there's a scene where Mom takes Vera to see the Val Kilmer Batman movie. This is all done in CG with a CG Nicole Kidman, and Vera says at this point, well, probably the teen boys in the audience were wishing they could have sex with Nicole Kidman, but I wanted to be Nicole Kidman. And she talks about the Joel Schumacher nipples and all that kind of talk, which we'll get to on one of these
nipples
episodes.
On Batman, yep. I suppose we will, yeah.
Yeah. So she decides she's going to move to Gotham to become a comedian.
Yep, she's going to New York City.
At any time, if I'm getting missing stuff, you got to jump in, because I was watching it twice. I still was like,
it's very
trying to keep track of it.
I'll try.
So so she decides she's going to move to Gotham now. Again,
which is New York. And the UCB is, United Clown Bureau.
Yeah.
Is run by Lorne Michaels.
Yes. Okay. This is a thing. Yes. They didn't change his name or anything. He is Lorne Michaels.
As far as I know, Vera Drew didn't have anything to do with SNL.
This is So, but it plays like, if you watch the movie and you're like, oh, this is autobiographical, you think, okay, Vera Drew tried to get on SNL, and I don't know, but how did they get away with this Lorne Michaels bit?
Lorne Michaels, I don't think, doesn't give a shit. Not unlike Warner Brothers.
By the way, this is good timing, because that SNL movie just came out like last week.
Which SNL movie?
There's a movie called Saturday Night or Late Night about the airing of the first episode, which was October 11, 1974 or 5. I think it's like the 50th anniversary. So anyway, that's just a coincidence.
I'm pretty sure we're just saying something about how comedy, how hard it is to succeed in comedy, because that's part of what's going on as well as her discovery of her identity. Also, how hard it is to crack into comedy. Yeah. And Lorne Michaels is a convenient bugbear, because he's so influential in, I suppose, in the New York comedy scene for his association with Saturday Night Live. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're not meant to take it super seriously. The idea that Lorne Michaels rules over New York with an iron fist.
Very interestingly, initially he was voiced by a cast member of SNL, and that edit was changed, and it's now Maria Bamford, who's a very funny comedian in her own right.
I read that was because did the cast member in question, they've got Me Too'd, which is I think this is what I read, which is very appropriate, because tearing down of toxic idols is another big theme in this in this movie. A big theme in this movie is that comedians don't deserve a free pass for their bad behaviour, just because they're funny. Or to put it another way,
nobody deserves a free pass for anything.
Of course not, but she wants to challenge...
I think in this movie, even like... We'll get to all
We're challenging we'll try to. We're challenging the idea that that comedians need a toxic background in order to be truly funny. Yeah. And this is lampooned. I think it took me yonks to figure out what's going on, but... Vera Drew as Joker the Harlequin's biggest hit as a comedian is asking people from the audience to come up on stage and tell the worst moment of their life while she does Smilex and laughs at them. Yeah. And I think the point of this, again, What I think doesn't really matter. But I think the point of this is, it's meant to skewer the idea that true comedy comes from something horrible in your past.
Right.
And there's all these bits where people will say, oh, I'm trying really hard to channel Bill Cosby before the allegations, of course. And then the other person will say, of course.
Of course.
And they'll say, well, I've got my bit relies a bit on Louis C.K. before the allegations, of course. Of course.
Yeah. Again, the unpleasantness, it's referred to as
before the unpleasantness. It's so much better than allegations.
Yeah.
Before the unpleasantness. I think the idea is that comedy doesn't have to, this idea that comedy needs to come from toxicity and therefore comedians deserve a pass because their toxicity causes them to act in inappropriate ways. Over and over again, we're kind of humorously reminded of that.
Yeah.
Especially, I really love those bits where, before the unpleasantness,
yes.
Of course.
So, she goes to audition at UCB, where a computer basically takes her name and assigns her gender, says you're a male.
It's the opposite
measures her penis.
Yeah. It's the opposite of creativity.
Yes.
This machine analyzes you, reduces you to statistics. Do you abuse substances? Is your dick small enough to be funny?
To be insecure about it.
Yes.
To need external
validation.
And then it reads her as male and says, okay, you can be in the cast.
Yeah.
So she goes in for this kind of audition. Now, there's this legendary comedian named Ra's al Ghul.
Yep.
Who she idolizes, right? Has since she was a little kid. He's the one that comes out and does the introduction at UCB and explains that they have this whole kind of cult, like Illuminati type program to get you into comedy.
Multi-level marketing.
Multi-level. It's based on this cube thing. And by the way, it's all drawn in the Necronomicon from Evil Dead. In that image, you can ring the bell for the Necronomicon. That was the second one.
Very good. Oh.
And that Necronomicon shows up twice with the scrawling in blood, just like in Evil Dead. And there's this cube, and you have to pay $15,000 to get into this program. So that's another part of it.
Yep.
And then they get on stage. They have to do a yes and thing for like hours and hours. She's totally sick of it. She's out in the alley afterwards. She's met this guy. The Penguin has introduced himself to her.
Yep.
And they talk and they say, like, this is bullshit. We should start our own thing. Let's call it anti-comedy. That way it won't be illegal.
Yep. Because you can't do comedy legally unless you're a member of UCB.
That's right. So they're going to
call... It's hard to get into comedy.
Yes. Yes. So this is a version of anti-comedy, which is not Andy Kaufman's version of anti-comedy.
No, it's just a regular comedy, but they just call it anti-comedy.
Yes.
But also it doesn't have to be funny.
That's right.
One thing is that everybody is really terrible.
Yes. So they opened this club in the...
Red Hood Theatre.
The Red Hood Theatre in the old abandoned amusement park, which is like where Joker hangs out in the comics.
In Mask of the Phantasm.
That's right. Yeah. So they formed this club, and all the comics that come in are mostly their Batman Rogues gallery.
Yes.
Except also the Phantom Zone villains are there in one shot.
Yes, they were. They were CG.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. Does that count? That's like a Terrence Stamp appearance almost.
Oh yeah, almost. Yeah.
We're gonna see more of Terrence Stamp.
Yeah. And here at the club, as they start doing these, they audition all these people. Vera takes up drinking, which she's not supposed to do because of her medication or Smilex prescription. She's not supposed to be taking alcohol as well, but she succumbs and she becomes a drinker. And here she meets, one of the comics that comes in is Jason Todd.
But it's not Jason Todd, it's
the Jared Leto Joker from Suicide Squad.
Yes.
He's called Jason Todd, which I think was maybe suggested was going to be his identity in Suicide Squad. I don't know. She calls him Mr. J. I think I heard that somewhere, or maybe...
It wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe I'm confusing some details.
No, it could be. And he's called Mr. J.
Which was what Harley always calls the Joker in the animated series, was Mr. J.
Yep.
So we've got a mix-up of a bunch of people here. Jason Todd, for those who don't know, was the second Robin. So after the first
Later became Red Hood.
Yes. But initially was killed by the Joker. We thought he had been with the crowbar.
Yes.
By a phone-in vote. That's another whole long story. They had fans phone in to whether Jason Todd lives or dies, and fans voted for him to die, so the Joker killed him.
Killed him with a crowbar.
Yeah.
But he came back to life in a Lazarus pit.
Right.
One of Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus
This
pits.
is all very inside baseball stuff.
That's what we
But anyway, yes. So anyway, we've got mixed up this kind of three characters mixed
He's
up
a
here.
nexus of all of these
That's
references.
right. That's right.
But also the actor playing this character, and also I think the character himself is a trans man.
That's right. That's right. This comes up initially. Vera just falls. It's love at first sight, and doesn't realize that this is actually a trans man. Initially, just assumes he's a cis man.
Yeah. But pretty quickly, I think Mr. J, Jason Todd, lets Vera know that he's queer.
Yes.
And then we kind of it takes a while for it to be stated, I think, that he's a trans man.
Yeah, they go to a tunnel of love.
Yeah.
In the park, and also at some stage here,
Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, the Tunnel of Love features in that.
Yes.
So that whenever that pops up, that pressed the button in my head.
Right.
That makes me go, thing I recognise.
Yes. And also at some stage here, Vera decides to take on the Joker the Harlequin persona.
Yep.
She decides this is going to be her stage act. She's going to be this character.
Well, it's Mr. J that helps her realise that.
Right.
So again, this is very personal stuff from Vera Drew's own life. Apparently, she had a relationship with a trans man. A TXT relationship, trans and
T for T.
T for T.
Yeah, T for teen is what. There's a T for teen joke in it, but
right.
She talks about how T for T couples are cute or something like that.
Yes. So this again is from her, and apparently this person helped her,
right?
Kind of come to terms with her identity. But shock horror, this was also an abusive relationship.
Right. Right.
Which is what we're going to get in the film too, because it becomes clear quickly that
we get a Harlequin Joker relationship.
Yes, just like Mad Love.
That's right, very much so. And when she takes on this persona, we get a bit of a song and dance number, and we get the Catwoman scene from Batman Returns, where she knocks out the O and the T from Hello There to make Hell Here, and all that, and sews the outfit, just like the Michelle Pfeiffer sequence in Batman Returns.
Yep. So that was probably what was going to be in the original version, where they were going to sew it together out of all the different...
Yes. Okay, so as you mentioned, she's coming to terms with who she is, and she decides she wants to get, transition, right?
Oh, yeah, so we get the Joker origin.
Yeah, so now we go to Ace Chemicals plant, where, as she says, even in a comic movie, you can't get proper health care, so she has to throw herself into a vat of estrogen. It's a really pretty great sequence.
And then Batman shows up, much like he did in the
And this whole sequence is done with dolls. By the way, it's stop motion dolls.
Yeah.
And the cops are Lego. The cops are Lego, so that's a bit like the Lego Batman movies as well. Like there's a bit of that in there.
Yeah.
By the way, Batman in this movie has a mustache, like a kind of twirly
mustache. Like a villain mustache.
A villain mustache. I don't know if that's just for copyright reasons.
Spanish a lot. He just looks Spanish a lot of the time.
Yes.
But I think maybe that's meant to signpost that this Batman is villainous.
Yeah.
Which he very definitely is.
Yeah.
We're taking his fascistic tendencies and cranking them up to 11, what with him being the totalitarian dictator of Gotham City, with his surveillance bots.
So he had retired, but he shows up at this chemical plant.
Because he has to, much like Batman 89.
Right. And recognizes Jason Todd, says, "Stop, Jason." And Jason's like, I thought you retired, and runs away. And outside, Harley, Joker the Harlequin, feels great. She's like, wow, I feel like, is it happening already? Yeah. And but then Jason Todd's all depressed.
Yeah. And
she's like, what's wrong? And then now we get the sequence from Jason Todd's animated flashback, done in the Frank Miller style of Dark Knight of Batman Returns, and reveals that his dead name was Carrie Kelly, which is the name of the Robin in
Dark Knight Returns.
Batman Returns. Batman Returns was set in the future, and the Robin was a new Robin, which was this 13-year-old girl, Carrie Kelly.
I mentioned this in our Sin City episode. This is Frank Miller unsavoriness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Prepubescent girls, or barely pubescent girls, just keep showing up and ending up with gross 50-year-old men. Over and over.
Yeah. Well, he's really old in this too. It's because it's like future Batman. He's like.
Well, he was future Batman in Dark Knight Returns as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Oh right. Yeah. So Jason Todd is Carrie Kelly.
Yeah. So this is done...
And she's been groomed by Batman.
That's right. It's revealed that, yes, this version is that Carrie Kelly was adopted from an orphanage by this billionaire. He doesn't know why at that stage anyway. And gradually, as he gets older, then suddenly the billionaire wants to start a relationship. And then that's when, and then has made this kid sign an NDA. Right? And all this kind of stuff. And that's when, I think he says that's when he finally realized it. And then people started saying you were groomed.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even realize it himself at the time. It's all done in this Frank Miller animated style. It's the closest you'll ever see to animated Frank Miller on screen.
Right.
And again, it's like perfectly melded, or not melded, it's overlaid these lived-in experiences with these superhero stories.
Yes.
And it happens again and again through the movie where those, superheroes are always about secret identities.
Yeah. And traumatic.
And that's such a perfect
and Marv Wolfman
metaphor for what's happening on these levels. And then we get this thing with the abused Robin in this relationship with this old man. And it's like, this is a perfect overlay for what this person's experienced.
Yes, it absolutely is.
It just keeps happening again and again in the movie.
Yeah. And you got to ask the question, why don't we get more of this?
Jokers and comedy, like that overlay, all that kind of stuff. Okay, what did I have next? Okay, so to go back to Batman issue 1 that you mentioned where Robin is being forced by Batman to commit crimes. Yes. Here we go. Adaptation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Forced to commit crimes and being groomed into a sexual relationship with the older billionaire. Yeah. Yeah. Incidentally, I read an interview with Vera Drew, the one I mentioned earlier, the one from the Queer News website. Vera Drew mentioned that she specifically chose the Jared Leto iteration of the Joker as the villain of the piece, at least in part because of Jared Leto's performance in Dallas Buyers Club, which she felt set back trans rights by a decade. Okay, interesting. So take that, Jared. Seems like a real world villain. Yeah, okay, so is this the point where that relationship, she starts to realize that it's abusive? That this relationship is abusive. Yeah, she even has a chart. Yes. How do you know when you're in an abusive relationship? And it includes things like steals your medication, but also has things like won't let you take credit for things. Yeah. Is furious when you are funnier than they are when you're both comedians, which is just like Mad Love, where the Joker couldn't handle. Right. That's right. That Harlequin was better at killing Batman than he was. Yeah. Yeah. And there's even a scene where, God, what happens? I think Vera's mum calls her and... Yes. And she's just utterly traumatized, but all Mr. J wants to talk about is he shoots the TV. He does shoot the TV because something, I can't remember what was on there. There's something on the TV that upsets him and he shoots the TV and Vera can't believe that he shot the TV. She just had this traumatic phone call. Now Mr. J shot the TV. And then Mr. J starts literally, quote unquote, gaslighting her. He gets out a lantern. Yes, and dead names her. Oh yeah, that's right. At one stage, fight. Yeah. No longer bleeped. Yeah. We hear the dead name. Yeah. Yeah. And holding up the lantern and saying things like, I'm the traumatized one. Yes. Not you. Yes. Yes. So... That's not actually what gaslighting is, but whatever. No. But at this point, because Mom's coming to town, Vera's kind of breaks up. I think it's the point they break up. There's 2 points where they kind of split up. Anyway, Mom's coming to town. Mom is trying to be a bit more progressive, right, at this stage. Comes to town and oh, you're wearing women's clothing, okay, and is struggling, but is trying to put a smile on her face about it. And then Mom wants to come to the comedy show. Vera's like, no way are you coming to my comedy show. Yep. But she insists, and then she's like, well, my boyfriend's going to be there. And Mom's like, okay. I'm proud to have a gay son. This robotic voice. Yeah, like a robot. Yeah. And he's not even a gay son. No. I mean, she's, it's so funny. She said this thing that maybe sounds like a therapist has primed her with, I am proud to have a gay son. Yes. And
Joker, the Harlequin, Vera just like shrugs. It's like, oh god, you can come.
Yes.
Just meet me at the damn theatre. At the same time, she's about to hack the broadcast.
Yes.
Much like Joker hijacks the airwaves
That's
in
right.
Batman Episode 1.
Yep.
She's hijacking the broadcast so that she can interrupt the standard broadcast of the Clown United Bureau, whatever it is.
No, it's actually the standard broadcast of the dating show.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
The
Batman
song.
has a dating show with convicted criminals called
So good.
Finish the Term, or I can't remember what it was called. Like
Yeah, something like Finish the Term.
something like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. She interrupts that and dares Lorne Michaels on air to let her host
Yeah,
Saturday Night Live. I mean,
UBC.
UBC.
Yeah.
And he accepts because the ratings went up.
The right.
And
Yeah.
he's a hack.
Yes.
So, and then I think Mr. J can't believe it. Again, he's furious at being outshone, but also sees it as a big betrayal.
Okay, so Mom's injured because she gets hit by a drone
She gets
that
by a
collapsed.
train hits her on the head.
She's concussed, and she ends up in the hospital. But Mr. J makes it all about himself.
Right. And then they break up, right?
They have a breakup there. So she gets ready for this UCB show. Meanwhile, her friend the Penguin is like, I can't believe you're actually...
Oh, it's him that's angry about it, her selling out.
He's
Yeah,
like,
that's
I
right.
can't believe this is a sellout, you're just going to do it. But I was a bit confused about this, because she did say, put me on the air instead of Batman. It was like what she announced.
Yeah.
So,
It's not really selling out.
I'm not sure,
It's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so Lorne Michaels is going to switch to a diverse show, like, diverse is the way he
Yeah.
phrased it. They're going to make the show diverse, so he wants her, not only on the cast, he wants her to host the show instead of
But it's
Batman.
It's transwashing because he has all these rules that he wants her to follow.
That we don't know about yet, yeah.
We eventually find out about them, yeah.
He's like, come on the show. Yes, it is. He's trying to get, like, diversity points. Mm-hmm. But then actually transwash. Yeah, anyway. So she goes and she has a bit of a training session with Ra's al Ghul before, who kind of walks her through all this kind of spiritual stuff about believing in yourself, finding yourself, all this kind of stuff.
It's a bit like Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins.
Well, we in fact get an animated sequence in the Necronomicon, which animates exactly the ice sword fight sequence between Bruce and Ra's al Ghul, but in this case it's Joker the Harley Quinn and this weird old comic who's Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
But that scene, it seems like they've rotoscoped the footage from Batman Begins to do this scene. Race encourages her to find out, like, what the thing was that hurt her or go into her past, and she recalls going to Arkham and she has this dream sequence. By the way, anytime there's a dream sequence, it's so psychedelic and really full on. I think there's like 3 in the movie that are like, whoa, like...
Yeah, there's always the purple Smilex gas everywhere, and it's very lurid. It's very Joel Schumacher's Batman.
Yes, yes, but there's all kinds of stuff flying around. Anyway, so she has this amazing sequence in Arkham. I just want to mention that at this point, Crane calls her Super Saiyan. Yes. Which I think is a reference to Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum.
Yes, a serious house on Serious Earth.
Where Grant Morrison, called Joker Super Saiyan, implying that Joker had some kind of more awareness of the world or reality than ordinary people.
Yes.
Was more sane.
Yes.
Maybe even knew he was a comic book character.
Yes.
Right? Which is not the way Crane uses here, but does apply to Joker.
It absolutely does. Because that's kind of like her role, yeah.
We had an earlier scene where when Penguin says, you're going to kiss Lorne Michaels' ass, and she says, we can't kiss his ass. We can't afford to animate his back half. Yeah. Right?
Incidentally, the Penguin sounds exactly like that voice you just did. That was really good. So she, much like... Well, it's a bit like Animal Man, Grant Morrison's Animal Man, and also a bit like Joker in the Arkham Asylum comic, that came out in, the 80s?
Yeah, 80s, late 80s, I think.
I think fish are big in that too, and fish are all through this movie as well.
Yes, there's a lot of fish, and we had the piranhas in the comic,
Yeah.
But also, there's a lot of, like, Penguin has to give all these Joel Schumacher-type lines about fish. Like, he talks about his comedy being an aquarium taste instead of an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Like, it's constant. It's constant.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% certain that Super Saiyan line refers to
Right.
Grant Morrison, and a similar concept that
Right.
she's a fourth wall breaking character
Right.
in the narrative of the film.
Okay. I think this is also when we get the dance down the stairs.
Yep.
Which is from the Todd Phillips Joker, but she's dancing to the Prince song from I think it was from the art gallery sequence in '89. Oh no, maybe it was the parade.
So definitely from the 80s. I missed that.
But it's like a remix version.
Right.
It's not like the actual Prince version.
Very, very on point for this movie, just mashing everything together.
Yeah.
Do you get it? This is like a myth.
Yeah. Yeah. So now Joker the Harlequin needs to get to the show, but is being pursued by Batman.
Yeah. This is where we get the PS1 sequence.
Yes. And then they crash into the water, and then we get an animated series sequence where all the Rogues Gallery show up to fight Batman.
Yep.
Catwoman shows up and says, what does she say? I'm something about you made me a prostitute or something, but a woman can be a cat burglar. She doesn't have to be a prostitute. Frank Miller. She says Frank Miller.
I love... yeah, Frank Miller.
So when in the final stages of her training with Ra's al Ghul, Ra's says, well, we have all these rules. Like, you can't cross-dress. You can't do all these things. And she's like, what is the point? That's who I am. And she said, well, you don't have to listen to those rules. And she's like, what would the People's Joker? The People's Joker.
He tells her about a myth.
A myth.
A prophecy,
a
rather.
prophecy.
In the Necronomicon.
That's right, in the Necronomicon.
About the People's Joker who will come and save comedy.
Yes. And she's like, what would the People's Joker do? And he says, I think it's him that says she would ignore it.
Yeah.
And that's when she has the big revelation and she dances down the stairs and all that kind of stuff. So she goes on stage. She's actually in the red suit backstage. We get back to the start of the movie.
We get shots from Joaquin Phoenix Joker, in the lift, where that famous shot where the lift door closes, where he's sitting in the lift looking glum. It's like that. The backstage shot that you already mentioned, the dancing on the stairs, obviously.
So she actually goes out in her Joker the Harlequin outfit.
Yep.
And she gives this routine. The audience is laughing a lot, and she doesn't understand why. And then she sees it; they're actually pumping Smilex into the crowd, and she gets down on her hands and knees, so she's like inhaling it from the tank directly.
Yep.
And then she kind of balloons, like she literally balloons her breasts and her butt, and then she pops like a balloon.
Yep. And then she ends up in the fifth dimension.
Yeah, and it seems like she is OV'd on this Smilex. I guess that's what we're to take from this. I'm not sure. And then she's in the fifth dimension, and she meets Mr. Mixixpidlick.
It's not Mr. Mixixpidlick, it's Mixixpidlick. MX.
Oh, mix. Yes, of course it is. I was like, why do they keep saying mix?
A non-binary...
So stupid. I should have picked that up. Yes, of course that's what it is. And then we get a song. And Mixixpidlick is like, okay, I can change whatever you want. And she's like, okay, I want a different Batman. I want a better Batman. So she puts her friend Penguin into the Batman and changes a lot of other things. And then, so it's like real Deus Ex Machina here, because we get a super being from the fifth dimension that's just going to fix the whole movie in the last 5 minutes. And then she's like, her last wish is to have one good memory. And Mixixpidlick says, well, I can't do that because you've already got it. And then shows her a memory of when she was in the car and her mom was singing The Joker by
Steve Miller Band
with all the lyrics wrong, and they were having a good laugh about it.
Yeah.
And then she says, thank you, and then we get the end. And then we get the credits, and we get a few superhero movie in-credit scenes.
So we get the Penguin as Batgwin.
Yes, Batgwin,
which is a mid-credit sequence, exactly like a Marvel movie, hyping up the next film, in this case. Penguin as Batman. You did the voice better than I do. It's good.
And he's even got a theme song that he sings.
Yeah. funny. I think I did laugh at that bit, actually.
Yeah, and then we get more of the cameo from Robert Wuhl, the literal, the brand cameo.
Yeah. It's even got as you say, it's even got the trademark logo appearing.
Yeah.
So of course he was in Batman '89.
Yeah.
So he's now a honorable mention.
Yes, that's right. That's right. He was also he showed up again as Nox in the Flash TV series during the Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline.
I bet he did.
Yeah, and he gives us a little inspirational message. That's kind of the end. And then we get that Haunted Gay Ride Pictures VD logo at the very end again. Okay, so it sounds like you got some more trivia.
Not as much as I would like. I mean, so it's pointless to talk about this film's budget.
Okay.
Because it didn't have one.
Right.
As I said, it was crowd-funded and Well, I suppose I couldn't track down a Patreon or anything like that to see how much Vera Drew raised. But I can't imagine it was a huge amount. And mostly she was relying on volunteer work from creatives who were making stuff. So, as for its box office, again, there isn't really one. Although this film has had a theatrical release.
Yes.
It was after it was in limbo for about 18 months or more. It was picked up last December by a distribution company called Altered Innocence, which also appeared in the credits. They specialise in queer and trans cinema, and it had a brief theatrical release in April this year, April 2024. Okay. Made about $250,000.
That's pretty good, I think.
Yeah, for a film that cost nothing.
There is a credit, and also at the very end, if you pause, there's a credit that says, "Thank you to Warner Brothers for all the publicity."
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have heard about this, I don't think, if...
No, and I don't think it would have had a theatrical release. This was just going to do like the film, like the convention circuit.
Yeah.
Festival circuit.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been on YouTube. People would have watched it the way we watched The Princess Bride with all of those various Hollywood types.
Yeah.
But instead, thanks to Warner Brothers...
Yeah, but think about the optics of Warner Brothers trying to shut this thing down. I really wonder what was going on.
It's probably a knee-jerk thing.
What all the back and forth was. Yeah, of course.
You can't...
And of course, the lawyers don't care about that side of it. They're just like, they
don't care about fair use.
Yeah.
They were happy to test it in court because they've got all the lawyers. Because this is fair use. I mean, from the start, Vera Drew said this is a fair use. This is satire.
Yeah.
It's protected speech in America under the First Amendment. You can parody and satire is legally protected speech in America, in the United States. It seemed like a clear-cut case to her.
Right.
Although the first screening of it was in Canada.
Right. Right.
Canada has legally protected speech, right?
Yes.
Canada has a Bill of Rights.
Not as much as the U.S.
No, it's very...
The U.S. is very...
They take their free speech
there,
very serious.
Yeah.
But yeah, having said that, it seems like... Obviously, it was fair use, but Warner Brothers has all the lawyers. And it's not a coincidence that you said during the review, as we've been talking about the film, that these stories, these Marv Wolfman stories of traumatic origins... These are familiar, and they overlay onto human experience effectively.
Yeah.
This is why people talk about comic books as like modern myths, I suppose. Yet we see it so seldomly, because the studios have such a tight lock on it, because it's their breadbasket, it's their gravy train. And if you try to play with these stories, if you try to make art and tell an allegorical tale, a personal story with their characters, they'll bring the hammer down.
It's interesting though, because we're getting to the point where like 100 years for some of these characters. We're getting there. We just got there with Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
That builds up a cultural cachet that people are paying off of in different ways, and this movie is really there. Every version of Batman is in there in some form. Even the 66 one, you see his face is like the shape of an entrance of something. It's hard to suppress that, is I guess what I'm trying to say, because it's just so big. You know what I mean? Like suppress the public consciousness of it, if you know what I mean?
I think watching
its expression in another form of art. Yeah.
Watching this and listening to you talk about it, it's interesting that we don't get more of it.
Yes.
And why isn't it happening more? I mean, why aren't we getting stories like My Fair Lady reinterpretation? Like My Fair Lady and Pygmalion. Right. All of these this rich kind of like vein of allegorical storytelling that comes from, say, classical mythology. If, none of us read Latin and Greek in school anymore, when it comes to cultural archetypes, I mean, it's not too ridiculous to say that they're being replaced more and more by characters from popular fiction, comic books not least.
Yeah.
And yet, it's so rare to see something like this that satirizes.
Yeah.
And I think it...
But it's because of the corporate control.
Yes!
But it's interesting because this movie is so anti-corporate.
Yes.
Well, as we said, in presentation and in the actual plot of the thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's completely anti-corporate.
Yeah.
In this instance, specifically corporate control over, I suppose, comedy.
Yeah, or...
To an extent.
Is it real? Is it about... it's just late in the day to say...
Because it's very autobiographical, this film.
Yeah.
And Vera Drew is a person that loves comics and loves DC and loves these stories. And unsurprisingly saw it as a great way to tell the story of her life. And also to say some interesting and profound things about the experience of a person trying to succeed in a career where everyone's toxic.
Yeah.
So, like this point about comedians, which we touched on earlier, where she says, I think there's a real danger and pretentiousness to thinking of the comedian, caps, as this tortured, fragile genius that we won't understand because we're not supposed to. I think that's how people get away with being abusive. We fetishize toxic geniuses. A supervillain is a toxic genius.
Yeah.
Right? So she's saying comedians are like supervillains.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hence her character of Joker the Harlequin eventually cracking into comedy as a villain.
Yeah.
And all of those gags about the unpleasantness.
Yes. Yes.
I think this movie's got a lot to say, and it's fun.
Yeah. Okay, should we rate these things?
Yes.
Okay. So the two comics.
They're both great.
Yeah.
It's a yay for me.
Yeah.
Especially Mad Love. I just thought it was...
Agree.
I thought it was really something.
And I was actually also surprised by Batman #1, which I thought would be a lot clunkier. And it is clunky, but there's some exciting, rad stuff that happens in it, and it's so violent, and there's so many dead bodies on the page. I was really pretty surprised by it.
Yeah, I was, I'd never read it before. I was surprised that you could really get a sense, you could take a step back and think, wow, this must have blown some kids away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this very interesting movie, is a big yay for me. Even though I still haven't absorbed all of it. It was really just a surprise and a sensory overload kind of experience in a lot of ways. But it was funny and strange and entertaining and all the rest of it. I did get quite a lot out of it, and I'm still trying to untangle it.
Excellent. I come in wanting to vote nay.
Okay.
I've been singing this movie's praises.
Okay.
And I'm so glad this film exists, and I think it's fascinating. However, I wouldn't have watched it twice in 2 days.
Right.
I suppose one of the things about it is that I just don't find it particularly funny.
Huh. You know what? I wondered if there's a certain concentration camp joke in the movie, which made me laugh both times. And I wonder if that was actually the test joke to screen out people like me that like...
Oh, you mean like Voice of the Fire's first chapter?
Yes, like, if you laugh
screen
at
out
this
C
joke...
words?
Yeah. If the person that laughs, this movie's not for those people. But it's weird. It's presented in such a layered way, like...
You know what? I actually found that scene funny.
Yeah.
The scene is...
It's the way she tells the joke...
Yeah. And Penguin's reactions to it.
Penguin's reaction to the inappropriateness of the joke and all the...
And how the clumsy way she tells it too.
Yes.
You're right. Actually, that scene is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm leaning towards nay, but I felt, one of the things I felt strongly when watching this, perhaps because a lot of the comic book references went over my head, was that much kind of like reading The Crow, I was experiencing something deeply personal for the creator.
It's like trying to read someone's diary and then give it a 5 rating out of 5 stars.
Precisely.
It's someone's diary.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
That was, I think, perhaps one of my biggest takeaway, because I am not queer. I'm still learning about comics. I think I'm not smack bang in the middle of this movie's rubric.
Right.
So for that, I'm going to give it a tentative nay.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Having said that, adaptation, on the other hand, I'll go first.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this is adaptation.
Yeah.
This...
To find all those metaphors is really... And find all the points of connection or parallels is brilliant to be able to spot those. But also, I've always felt about Batman that Batman is a jug, a container, a vessel.
Yeah.
And you can put whatever flavor thing in there you want, and they're all kind of valid.
Yeah.
I think 66 is valid. I think 89 is valid. I think the Nolan is valid. I think this is valid. I think these are all valid takes on the Joker, which has already been mixed up so many times by DC Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They keep putting out iterations of the Joker. They put out that Todd Phillips Joker and Suicide Squad, and they're all on like Flash and the Flash movie. They were all happening at the same time. So these things are totally fluid, and I think everything in here made sense to me as an understanding of these characters and superheroes in general, and that is a metaphor for identity in general. So it all added up to me in a strange way.
I completely agree. And I'm just asking the question after watching this film is where are all the other films like this? Where are all the other stories like, I'm thinking like maybe Kevin Conroy's comic that we read for...
That's right.
For Mask of the Phantasm way back when, where he spoke about how playing Batman was a way of him processing his experience of being discriminated against as a gay man working in, film and television.
Yeah, yeah.
And Vera Drew writes about that. Vera Drew's experience, she's spoken about that experience in interviews. This is what we're seeing on the stage as well. She said that when she was an angry man in her 20s, people just gave her a pass.
Yeah, right.
She got work because, again, this toxic... It was fine for her when she was still presenting as a man. People expected this weird, angry weirdo to make art. But as soon as she came out and was trans, right about when she got her Emmy nomination, incidentally, around about the same year, 2019, because she's 28 years old, I think, when she transitioned, so fairly old, then the work starts to dry up.
Right.
Yeah. But, Kevin Conroy could write that comic because he played Batman for 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
And it appeared in a volume of comics that was almost a bit of gay washing in and of itself. It was a volume of gay stories and set in the DC universe, wasn't it? So when I see this film, I think, this is we need more stories like this. Yeah. We need fewer stories like, what if I just layer the Joker on top of Taxi Driver?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is way better of an adaptation.
And why aren't I getting more about people interrogating their lived experience through the lens of these modern myths?
Especially if they consume a ton of those myths as kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Please rate, review, subscribe on whatever your platform is. Please leave a comment. Please email us at the email address in the show notes. Please join our Facebook group. Yeah. Our Instagram, just so dead. Instagram is so dead.
We'll get back to it someday.
I will get back to it. Schedule is kind of normalizing now, so it might happen. Please join our Patreon at patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion.
So we can buy Blu-rays that we can't watch.
Blu-rays that we can't watch. Exactly.
I would love to come back to the... I just said I wouldn't watch this movie twice in 2 days. But I wouldn't mind coming back to it at some point and maybe watching that Blu-ray.
Yeah. There's 3 commentary tracks on there.
We could watch one each and maybe get Ashton to watch the third.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that it? That covered all of it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so next week we're going to do Modesty Blaze from 1966, same year as Batman. And then the week after we'll do the other Modesty Blaze, which is direct-to-video from the 90s.
And which one has Terrence Stamp?
1966.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That I'm excited about.
Yeah. All right, cool.